So now this is a uh, little experiment and a trial. What I'm hoping to do is to illustrate how augmented virtual reality can be used with education and the importance of the human factor in telling stories as opposed to purely self-directed learning. So what I'm looking at now is I'm actually within the VR TV app on the Oculus GO, and I'm looking at the menu screen that gives me options of the different things that I can watch. I'm going to use a guided tour of some of my favorite spots in the world as an illustration for this human factor augmented virtual reality. So I click on this guided tour and I'm taken to the first screen of the guided tour, which was actually shot with a 360-degree camera in the study of my house. So I'm now seeing this opening view. I'm waiting for the VR TV app to stop spinning round, and then I'll go into the tour and illustrate how this works. I created this tour as a way of testing out the functionality of this VR TV's new interactive tour feature. So this opening screen in my study has navigation and information buttons. So I'm going to start by having a look at some of the information buttons. Clicking on the picture of me with the Oculus GO headset on the I button, and it brings up a bit of text which I created to just say a little bit about what the Oculus GO is. When I want to show this live during the ECTEL conference in Leeds in a couple of weeks' time, I'm hoping that I'll be able to stream it to my Facebook page. So if there's anybody at the moment watching this and listening to it, I'd be very pleased to get some feedback from it. I'll just click on the About This Tour button, and I've used this to just really give a bit of background to what the tour is all about. Within the web-based version of this application, you can actually click on the web link, but it's not yet supported within virtual reality. So first thing I'm going to do is go to the first 360-degree image on this world tour, which is of Sydney Harbour. Now, anybody taking this tour themselves, accessing it via the web application, will be able to explore it themselves. But what I'm trying to illustrate here is putting the human context into the story and the background behind this image. This was a 360-degree image which was taken actually on one of the towers of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, which has a fantastic view over the harbour. So I'm now going to turn. I'll move slowly so that it doesn't appear too jerky when it's being streamed live, and you can see the structure of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and you'll see that I'm actually standing on the walkway which is beside the road. If I look up, I can see an information button that will give me more information about the Harbour Bridge. So I click on that, and it shows me a picture I downloaded from Wikipedia and some supplementary information about the Sydney Harbour Bridge. But I'm going to turn back round now. The trip to Sydney was one of the ISDE conferences, the Digital Earth conferences, where I was talking about technology and digital Earth applications. So with all of these pictures, you can click on information buttons and you can navigate to the next screen. I'm now going to go to Taiwan and just say a little bit about the background behind this picture. This was when I went for a walk in Taiwan, where I was speaking at a conference on global health. It was my first visit to Taiwan, and I walked down one of the main streets, not far from the hotel, to the river. And the river kind of divides into two where I'm based here on this picture. So if I just look around and see what I can see, this picture, I believe, was taken quite close to where they have a museum on the history of coal. And Taiwan is quite a clean and fresh city, but it was part of the center of the coal industry. I'm now going to move on to the next screen, which was taken in the war cemetery in Kanchanaburi in Thailand. Now, the graves in this war cemetery are of young soldiers from the Allied forces who died during the construction of the so-called death railway between Thailand and Burma. And what I didn't appreciate was that there were many thousand more local people died in the construction of this railway than the military personnel. But the cemetery itself is absolutely beautifully kept. I can click on the information button, and this gives you an idea where Kanchanaburi is. You'll see that there's Thailand there. Bangkok is a little bit further south, and the more detailed map actually shows where the cemetery is, and you can see up here, bridge on the River Kwai. So it's not far from the bridge over the River Kwai, where there is also a very interesting war museum. Now moving on to the Merlion in Singapore. Now, the Merlion is regarded as a symbol of Singapore. You see where Singapore is in the world, and you can see that the Merlion that you're looking at is actually on this promontory in Marina Bay, where they have some spectacular gardens. They have the big wheel that was built. They have raffles. So this area is a wonderful tourist spot, and Merlion is very iconic part of that. So I'm just going to turn my head now and just have a look round at Marina Bay. And you can see this fantastic hotel in the distance, which looks like a ship on top of the venue. And there is the Millennium Wheel that I mentioned. And just beyond that are some fantastic flower gardens. You can see there are ferries that go around the bay, and you can see all the modern skyscraper buildings. Singapore is one of my favorite places in the world. I'm now going to move on to Kuala Lumpur, which is probably my most favorite city, and I'm actually now looking up at the Petronas Twin Towers, which are a fantastic symbol of Kuala Lumpur. And so if I click on the information button, you can see where Kuala Lumpur is, quite close to Singapore. And the Twin Towers there are within what's known as the Golden Triangle in Kuala Lumpur. If I click back again, just a little bit of more information about the Petronas Towers in this area that I'm pointing out at the end of the fountains. That's what's known as Soraya KLCC, which is a big shopping complex in between the two Twin Towers that goes across both sides on 5 floors. Fantastic shopping centre with all of the top brands in. And I just have a look round and share the view that you've got if you are standing in front of the Petronas Towers. This was a bank building on the other side of the road. I now turn back again and navigate to the next location, which is Patasco Park. Patasco Valley Park, as a friend of mine, very good friend of mine, called Tim Forsman. I was fortunate enough to stay with him when I was a speaker at the Serious Play Conference at West Virginia University, where they have a Serious Games Institute. Tim is and his wife are the wardens for this Valley Park, and so every morning I used to go for a walk, and on this walk there was this footbridge which crossed over the valley, and on the other side there's a railway line that carries a lot of freight traffic. I'll show you where it is. You can see it's in the USA, and it's not far from Baltimore, so it's up in the northeast of the USA, and that gives a bit more information about Patasco Valley State Park with a map, so you can see it's quite a substantial area. Moving to across the Atlantic to Norway, I go to Stavanger, where I've done some work for a client, providing some business mentoring. You can see where Stavanger is in Norway, and the port is a very popular stopping place for many cruise ships. And if you go there, there are cruise ships virtually every day during the season, and this is an example of one of them. And I look round, you can see some of the traditional Norwegian or Scandinavian type buildings, restaurants and bars in this harbour area. I'm just looking up at a tower, and I quite remember seeing that actually. So this is a good reminder for me. I'm now going to move on to somewhere else in Europe, which is Florence. And again, speaking at a conference, we had a day trip to Florence, and one of the things we went to see was the statue of David. So I'm just going to click on the information button, and you can see where Florence is in Italy, and you can see where the statue of David is within the city of Florence. It gives a little bit of information about this Renaissance sculpture created in marble between 1501 and 1504. And if you are looking at this on the website, you can get more information from Wikipedia, but as I said, it's not supported on the VR version of this application. Still staying within Europe, I'm now going to move to Brussels. And again, you can see where Brussels is in Europe, not too far from the UK. One of the most iconic features of Brussels is the Grand Place, which is a wonderful visit. But this picture here was actually taken in a museum that we found by chance. The museum's called Auto World, and it has a fantastic selection of motor vehicles from last century to this century, and you can see some of the selection as I look round. The good thing about this is that once I'm told the story and navigated through this virtual tour, then it means that students can navigate it for themselves, but at the least they will have some context about the reason why the picture is here and what to look out for. I'm now going to go to France. Again, click on the icon and see this is a location near Béziers on the Canal du Midi, where I was invited by some academic friends to go on a short trip in a canal boat up the Canal du Midi, which stretches for quite a long distance. And as I turn around, you'll be able to see me as the captain of the ship on this occasion. And I look round, and you'll be able to follow. So you can get an idea of the tranquility of the Canal du Midi and the wonderful little villages that you pass through. The Tomb of the Kings is in Cyprus. I click on the information button. Unfortunately, for some reason, I was not able to import the map, so I can't show you where Cyprus is, but it's in the east of the Mediterranean, and Cyprus has two halves. So the Greek side of Cyprus, which is where Paphos is, and the Tombs of the Kings, and the Turkish side of Cyprus. Moving on to the last image in the sequence, and this is my home country, the UK, and this was taken on one of my many visits down to London, and it's on what's known as the Hungerford Bridge. But these are the Golden Jubilee bridges, which are the footbridges that go alongside the railway bridge. So if I turn round, you can see the railway bridge behind me, and it's a great spot for looking at some of the icons of London. So you have the London Eye, Coca-Cola London Eye, which is a giant Ferris wheel on the south bank of the river, and just down the river you can see the Houses of Parliament and Big Ben, which currently is having some reconstruction work or refurbishment work. But I've created a little pop-up page there to show you what Big Ben should look like underneath all of that wrapping. So, having gone through that tour, I hope it gives some indication about how you can combine interactive virtual reality and the use of social media like Facebook to be able to share experience and tell stories to supplement what people can get from just navigating a virtual tour like this on their own. It's the human stories which gives some sort of context and hopefully provide some sort of motivation for wanting to know more about these places. So for those who've joined me on this visit, I want to say thank you very much. Any comments that you may have, either if you're watching it live or if you watch this recording, any comments will be most welcome. It's my intention at the ECTEL conference on Thursday, September the 6th, when I'm doing a keynote presentation, I hope to repeat at least part of this exercise as part of my keynote, because I found a way of being able to display what I'm streaming now on my laptop, so that the audience can see what I'm seeing through my headset, albeit delayed by maybe a couple of seconds because of the latency involved in transmitting it over the internet. So thank you once again for joining me. I'm now going to back to the share icon and shut down the live sharing. So I click on the shut down sharing button, and I'm going to select end live stream.